grab your Bibles, if you will. Turn to Genesis chapter 28. Genesis chapter 28 and verse 10 is where I'm going to get started here. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he came to a certain place and stayed there that night, because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. And in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. Now, as I start to talk about this here, go ahead and turn over to John chapter 1. John chapter 1, around verse 43. So, we see that Jacob, he is on his way to essentially get his wives, to get Leah and Rachel. And so that's the direction that he's heading. And on his path, he stops here in Haran, and or the city of Luz is actually what we find out it is. And that's where he sleeps the night. And I can tell you, from sleeping on the ground in Texas, sleeping on the ground in Alaska, sleeping on the ground in the Philippines, none of it is fun. And when you're using a stone for your pillow, that's really not fun. Now, I don't know how in the world he got asleep enough to dream, but he was able to sleep, and in his sleep, God gives him this dream, and he reiterates the same promise he gave to Abraham, right? And he gave the same promise to Abraham, to Isaac, and now he gives that same promise to Jacob, that his ancestors, he will be, or not his ancestors, but his descendants will essentially be us. You know, that's the key that he's talking about, how they will bless the families, and that through his line is where Jesus will come from. And keep that in your minds, discussing about or thinking about what Jacob saw, what he experienced in his dream. And remember, in his dream, there's this ladder that the angels of God are ascending and descending on. So they're coming from heaven to earth, back and forth, if you will, on this ladder. And then God is standing at the top of the ladder as he gives that promise to Jacob. Now, John chapter 1 and verse 43. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, Follow me. Now, Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. Nathanael said to him, Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Philip said to him, Come and see. Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said to him, Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no deceit. Nathanael said to him, How do you know me? Jesus answered him, Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. Nathanael answered him, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. Jesus answered him, Because I said to you, I saw you under the fig tree, do you believe? You will see greater things than these. And he said to him, Truly, truly, I say to you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. The reason we pull these two together is mainly out of verse 51 that we see there. And you know, what a lot of folks, scholar-wise, and I agree with them, are talking about is this with Nathanael, and he's under the fig tree. The idea that a lot of people glean from this is that he's reading that same passage about Jacob. And he's contemplating, he's thinking about seeing this ladder and the angels ascending and descending off. And then Jesus, says, I saw you under the fig tree. And he's like, oh, yeah, I believe that you are the Son of God, which is kind of interesting here in chapter 1. Who is it that always gets all the glory for saying you're the Son of God? Peter, right? we already got Nathaniel over here saying, recognizing right off the bat, right, that he is the Son of God and the King of Israel. But in this, Jesus not only says, you believe because of that. Well, here's another step further. I'm going to tell you what you were thinking about. You were thinking about, you were contemplating, you were meditating on this that happened to Jacob. And he said, I'm going to take it one step farther. That ladder and the angels ascending and descending, yeah, that's me, the Son of Man. That's Jesus. Because Jesus is the one who is the connector between heaven and earth, the connector between God and man, the connector between the things that are spiritual and the things that are physical. And we see it shadowed in the dream that Jacob has. And then we see Jesus here telling us that he is that connection. And then we see that as we study and as we learn, when we come to know him and we receive the gospel, we step into that confession and that obedience of the gospel, then we receive the Spirit of God, and then we become that connection between heaven and earth, the physical, the spiritual, between God and man, as his Spirit dwells within us. We see that fully realized at Jesus' resurrection. When Jesus is resurrected, he has a spirit and a physical body together as one. He's able to change what his appearance is such that Mary didn't know who he was and then reveal himself. He's able to walk with the two guys on the road to Emmaus. They not know who he is the whole time, and he explains to them from the Scriptures how the Son of Man had to go through all that he went through. And then it's not until he reveals himself while they're eating that they recognize who he is, and then he poofs out of there, right? He disappears from their presence. He goes to where the disciples are, and they've got the door locked, and he just walks into the midst of them while the door's locked. But then while he's there, he says, hey, give me some fish to eat. Right? And while he's there, they all say, oh, it's his ghost. He says, no, I'm not a ghost. I've got flesh and blood. I'm bone and flesh. Give me something to eat. Right? So he proves that he is the physical, but he is also the spiritual. He is that link that is required for mankind, that link that Jacob was shown a glimpse of, that Nathaniel here is contemplating, and that Jesus points out. He is that link for all mankind to be able to have that connection from the spiritual and the physical. And then as we die, as the resurrection happens, our mortal bodies will be put aside, right? Will perish. The perishable is sown, and the imperishable is what's raised, right? So we receive that new body just like Jesus is. So there will be a physical body, if you will, but it is that spiritual body in the same way that Jesus is. And so we are going to receive that then, but right now we have the down payment of the Spirit of God living within us. So we are the point where God meets mankind as we walk on this earth. So that should give us, one, a lot of encouragement when we meet people who we run into obstacles. We run into people who discredit or people who want to attack us. We have the Spirit of Christ that lives within us. We're invincible. There's no one that can stand against us when His Spirit is within us and when we stand with Christ. So as long as we're standing with Him and we're standing in the Spirit, there's nothing for us to be afraid of, right? And we should be living the lives that are focused on, like we talked about earlier in class, what can I do right now? This is the time. This is the moment. Like we read in Hebrews, today is the day. Now is the time to act, to do, to be. We have the Spirit. We have the down payment. We have Christ within us. Let's live, act, and be where we see the meeting of the physical and the spiritual and show that to the world around us so that they hopefully will be inspired to then also want to have that Spirit within them. This evening, that's my encouragement to you. A little bit of a fun challenge there, and to a mind bender to think about the physical and the spiritual being combined together. But then that is also for us to show that to the rest of the world. This evening, if you need the prayers of the church, now is your time to